Alright, the green commons look pretty decent, so let's go ahead and start looking at some uncommons here. We have Snow Sorcery, Blizzard Brawl. Choose target creature you control and target creature you don't control. If you control 3 or more snow permanents, the creature you control gets +1 and gains indestructible until end of turn. This card is fantastic. Like, Prey Upon is a good card. And this is Prey Upon, like, super +++ if you have it. If you have, it looks like snow permanents, not even snow lands. I mean, this is an 8, obviously. This card's great. I'm not sure this is better than Struggle for Skirnfar. I'm not sure it is. But it has a much lower floor and a much higher ceiling. So, you're always going to play it. Maybe not. You know, now that I think about it, no, we're making this a 7. We're not always going to play it. I forgot that the 3-mana deal 4 exists. No. Wait a minute, no. This is like a 7 or a 6, isn't it? That common deal 4. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. I was looking, thinking that the snow permanence is always going to be on. It's not. It's going to be on like maybe less than 40% of the time, probably. You're right. I'm going to put it as a 7. I think it's closer to 6.5 than 7. Let's make it a 6.5. You're right. Reality has hit me. You're right. You always play the first. I don't think I'd play the second, which makes me think it's closer to a 6. I think you're right. Let's make it, just make it a hard 6. You always play the first one, I agree. Reality is often disappointing. The first is a 7? Okay, fine, 6.5. Fine! Alright, Boreal Outrider. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if snow of any of that spell's... Oh, no. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if snow of any of that spell's colors was spent to cast it, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Okay. So let's unwind this. So imagine you have a card that costs 2 colorless and a red. And you have 2 snow forests and a mountain. That card will not get a counter. Yeah, okay. Also, if you have a card that costs like 2 green, and you have 2 snow forests and 2 mountains, and you play it, it gets 1 counter, not 2. You get 1 counter. Yeah, on first, it's 1 counter at most. And you have to have the snowland of the color of the card. I mean, I think you're always going to play this. The question is whether it's a 7 or an 8, right? It's not as good as it looks, but it is a snow creature. It's a snow card. It's either a 7 or an 8. Like, if you have 5 snowlands in your deck, like, let's imagine best case scenario. It's 2 and a green 3/2 that makes all your other creatures come into play with a +1/+1 counter, which is a card that has existed in the past. It was like that Gully, right? Fern Gully? Whatever. What was it called? 1 red green 3/3? Isn't that what it did? It made all your other creatures come into play with Riot? Is that what it was? Grum Gully? It says each other non-human creature you control enters the battlefield with a counter on it. Oh, okay, Grum Gully. Sorry, not Fern Gully. Grum Gully. And that was non-humans. That card was amazing. Now, to be fair, that was a 3/3. But this doesn't... Here's the thing. This doesn't take mana to activate. Right? Like, if your card... It's not like you may pay snow in addition to get a counter on it. It doesn't take mana to use this. I think this is an 8. I think this is an 8. I think this card's legit. I think it's on the same level as Horizon Seeker. Do you not think it's on the same level as Horizon Seeker, which is also an 8? It's a card that pays rent. It's an 8. It's a card that pays rent. It pays you to stick around. I'm about that. It's worse than it seems on first blush, but it is good. Renata? Yeah, Renata was an amazing card. But that was for different reasons, but yeah. Alvin Bow. Artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 1/1. Okay, so it's a 3 mana 2/3 reach, which is not embarrassing. This seems fine. I think you're always going to play the first one. You're not going to play the second one, I don't think. It's either a 6 or a 7. This card is certainly fine. We can call it a 7. I don't think you would ever play a second one of these if you had the first one in your deck. Which makes me think it's probably closer to a 6. This is like not an embarrassing card. Remember, 6 is still main deck worthy. Like, you still play it. I think the blue one's the best of the cycle. It's a 5-mana 4/5, like, quasi-hexproof. I think that one's the best one. Do I evaluate uncommons differently? I don't think so. Fen the Fangbearer. 1/3 death touch. Whenever a creature you control death touch deals damage to a player, the poison gets 2 points. Whatever. 2-mana 1/3 death touch is a really good card. So, I mean, it's not an 8, it's a 7. But it doesn't pay rent. But I guess it could be a 6. This is better than a 3-mana 2/2 death touch by a lot. This is better than Alvin Bow. Yeah, it's whatever. I think it's not for limited, so. Lejara Glade Warden, Changeling 3/3, 2 mana, 2 and a green, exile a creature, so 3 mana. Exile a creature card from your graveyard, put 2 counters on target creature. You activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. This is like a Colossipede. Sort of. It's expensive. But you're gonna play it, so this is a 7. I don't imagine you I don't imagine you not playing this card, right? It does pay rent. Yeah, it sticks around. It pays. Yeah, it's good artwork. Yeah, it obviously at instant speed. Yeah, at instant speed, this card would be bananas. It would be a 9 out of 10 if it's instant speed, but it's not, so. Yeah, the second is much worse than the first. But I think you're just always going to play this. Path to the World Tree. Enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. You don't play this card. That's a pass. Okay, look. If you have Glittering Frost and Sculptor of Winter, then you would play this card. An interesting thing to note is that this is essentially a snow permanent, right? Because you'll find a Snowland with this. So if you can activate this card, then you play it. And I don't think it's impossible for you to be able to activate this card. I don't. But I think that means it's a 5. I don't think in most of majority of decks you play this card. Lay of the Land at 2 mana is not where you want to be. You can get it back with your white 4/4. How are you going to activate it? Isn't it? And the white card's a 3/3, right? Oh, you're talking about the common 4/4? I thought you were talking about the uncommon 3/3 Flying Angel that rebuys like a permanent that costs 2 or less. Pay 7? I mean, I'll put this as a 5 just because this goes from a 5 to an 8 depending on the right deck, right? Because if you can actually activate, this card is like bananas. Yeah, Bear Ultimatum. Yeah. Yeah, if it costs 3 and put the land into play, it'd be a different story. You would main deck this card almost every time if it costs 3 and put the land into play. Rootless You. When it dies, search your library for a creature card with power or toughness 6 or greater. Reveal it and put it into your hand. It can find the Honey Mammoth, right? What else can it find? Finds you're definitely not Honey Mammoths. You can find an Ox. You can find a Honey Mammoth. I think if 5-mana 5/4, if it was a 5-mana 5/4 no text, it's like a 6, 5.5 or a 6, right? Probably closer to a 5. So I think this is a 6. I think it's not embarrassing to play this if you have targets for it. Yeah, I mean a 5-mana 5/5 is like an 8 out of 10, right? We already did that earlier with Grizzled Outrider. That's a 5-mana 5/5 no text. I mean, this is a 5-mana 5/4 with text that might draw a card and might tutor for a card, right? So it just depends. Kind of just depends what you have. If you're playing it, it's going to be a 7 or 8. But I think if you have like only one target, it's probably a 6 out of 10. I think you need at least 2 hits for it. Yeah. I think if you have 2 hits for this, then it becomes you're always going to play it if you have 2 hits. It's a coin flip to play it if you have only 1 hit. Rune of Might. Enters a battlefield, draw a card. As long as the champion is a creature. Wait. Isn't this card good? This feels like a 7 to me. If I had 3, I probably would not play... I mean, maybe I play 3. I don't think I do. I do like that you can just cycle it on turn 2 and put on your land. Setessan Training? You're right. It is a strictly better Setessan Training. But I had never played Setessan Training. I thought that card was unplayable. So... yeah, I think 7 out of 10 is pretty solid for this. I think you're always going to play your first one. You might always play your second one. I think you're always... I think they start getting a lot worse, as all cantrips do. They get a lot worse when you have multiples, because you gotta have fewer fluffs in your deck. But... yeah, Setessan Training was a card I almost never played. So... well, this is strictly better on multiple levels, because not only can it can enchant equipment, it can enchant, like, equipments and vehicles, but it also gives 1 health. And you can just cycle it on with no cards in play. You can just put it on your land. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty poggers that you can... like, the runes are a really good design, except for that one card that it doesn't work with. That white mythic. That white mythic that doesn't even let you move it off your lands. It's so stupid. Anyways. When Spirit of the Alder Guard enters the battlefield, search your library for a Snowland card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. It gets +1/+0 for each other... wait, it finds Snowlands, but... it counts snow permanents. And this will find your dual lands, you're right. It doesn't say snow basic land, it says snow land. There's a cycle of coming to play tapped snow dual lands. I like it. I feel like this is gonna be like a 4-mana 2/4 or 4-mana 3/4 like draw a card, right? I know it doesn't count itself for power. But even if it was 4-mana 1/4 draw a card with like upside. I think this is a solid. It's a solid 7.5 or an 8, right? If I open three of these, I would probably play all 3. So like a 7.5 or an 8 to me. It's I think this is a lot better. I think this is better than Horizon Seeker. I think this is better than Horizon Seeker, which is the 3/2 that had Boast, 2 mana to get a land. I think this is better than that. So I think an 8 is fine. Maybe you can find out Bear Ultimatum? Yeah, maybe. Oh, I accidentally copied it. Whoops. Alright. Blessing of Frost. Distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures you control, where X is the number of amount of snow spent to cast this spell. Then draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. Alright, so it's put 1 counter on a creature and then draw a card for every 4 power creature you have. No. The baseline for this is 2 counters. The baseline for this is 2 counters. You would need 2 Snowlands for this. It is not harmonized pretty often. That seems like a misnomer. This feels like 4 mana draw 2, put 2 counters, which is like a draw 3, right? This seems like a 6 to me. This is not 2 counters on every creature. It's distribute X counters among. If you pay 4, you get 4 +1/+1 counters, but wherever you want. Yeah, so the baseline, the floor, like, obviously the floor for this is you don't have a Snowland. Which is actually going to be the case 20% of the time. Maybe less, considering you're green, you can find Snowlands, right? Considering this is a green card, and there's a lot of green ways to find Snowlands, I think the floor for this being 2, X equals 2, is a reasonable floor to expect. So imagine this card says 4 mana, distribute 2 counters among creatures you control, then draw a card for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. How do you evaluate that card? 2 counters, draw 2 is what I think the floor for this card is. And it scales up from there, right? It can scale way up from there. The ceiling for this is quite high. If it's 4 mana, draw 1 card, 2 counters, it's not good. I'm gonna put this as a 7. You're right that it does not target. That is a huge upside that I did not bring up. That's a really good target. That's a really good point. So you have like a 2/2 and a 4/4, and you play this for 2, right? If your opponent demonic bolts your 4/4, you still get to put 2 counters on your 2/2 and draw a card. Because you don't have to choose to put the counter somewhere. I think 7's a solid. I think it's solid. I'm looking forward to playing with this and losing to it. Elvish War Master. Whenever one or more other elves enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1. Oh, okay. This ability only triggers once each turn. I was worried. Okay. 7 mana. Elves you control get +2/+2/+2 in Death Touch. I would never play an MTGA. MTGA is not a competitive sealed form. Like, it's not a real thing. A 10? No, this is not a 10. I think this is at least an 8. I think an 8 is reasonable for this card. It's not on the level of like dragons, which were 9s. I think this is a solid 8. I think it's going to be a 2/2 that makes 2/1s, 2 or 3 1/1s, and that has inevitability with your like it has this +2/+2 thing attached. I think it's solid. Aegis Chariots. 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 green cat creature tokens. Whenever it attacks, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. Cat car. This is minimum 9. Is this a 10? A Cadillac? I like Cadillac. This pays rent. Feels like a 10? I don't think it's a 10. I think it's like a 9.5. It's close to a 10. It's not going to win the yearly game on its own, because like at the end of the day, if your opponent has like a 4/4 and blocks it, you have 3 2/2s left over. That's pretty good. I guess my baseline for like 10s is that the Doomblade doesn't answer it. A Doomblade does not answer this. Not even close, right? Well, 10 out of 10 cards, do you splash for it? You do splash for this, right? So I guess this is a 10. If you were like a blue-white deck, you would splash like 2 forests in this card, right? So, yeah. This is a 10. Yeah, good one, Lemon Ryan 98 for the Cadillac. Are there any big tokens you can copy? You know, I'm not sure. Norwegian Forest Cats? I believe it. This is... Oh, it's target tokens! You're right. It is target token. You can make treasures. That's kind of cute. That is cute. I wouldn't have even thought about that. You can copy the 5/5 dragons. You can copy the 4/4 angels. Yeah. There's a lot of upside to this card. And there's treasure, so like even if you're playing, it's trivial to splash this card, it seems. So yeah, this is a 10. I think you would always play it. If you open it, you're playing it. Like, doesn't matter what your colors are. You can be black, white, blue, white, green, like, blue, red. You would always do this. In Search of Greatness. That's a 1. From a 10 to a 1. From the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. I don't know. If this was a green enchantment that on your upkeep scry 1, is that good? The thing is, Darksteel Pendant was a 2-cost artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it to scry 1, and that card was like a 6 out of 10. Crystal Ball was scry 2. This is like a third as good as Crystal Ball. Crystal Ball was a bomb. Crystal Ball was a 9 out of 10 card. It was a 3-mana artifact, pay 1, tap scry 2. That was a 9 out of 10. This is not that card. Alright, you're right. This is a 5. Starfish is a lot better than this card, because the Starfish was an 0/3 that could block. I was Search for Risk Content Limited. You didn't play it. I didn't play it. This is better than... This is worse than Search for Risk Content. I never played Search for Risk Content. It's also hard to cast. It's a 5. It's a 5 or a 4. Let's make it a 5. No, Magic Comment, it's others. It doesn't count itself. On its own, it doesn't... You can only put a 1-drop into play on its own. Oh, you're saying you play this in turn 2, then you play a 3-cost 3/3, and then you get a 4-drop out of it? But then you don't scry that turn. And like, why wouldn't a land also do that? Like, Magic Comments, have you thought about just having, instead of playing this in turn 2, you could just have a basic land in your hand and play a 3-cost 3/3, and then you can play this as your 4th land, and then play your 4-drop, then you play your 4-drop. So, I think the problem with this card is that it turns itself off, right? Because it says you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with converted mana cost. It has equal to 1 plus the highest. So if you have a 5-drop in play, it's now only keying off 6-drops. And so you're locked out. You're just scrying 1 for the rest of the game, right? I'll put it as a 5. I'm not that. It's either a 5 or it's either like a 4, 5, or 6, right? It's whatever. Moving on. Jorn, God of Winter. 3 mana, 3/3. Whenever it attacks, untap each snow permanent you control. Okay, so first of all, this is a snow permanent, so it hits the 3/3 vigilance. And you can float your snow mana and like you can like foretell, right, with your floated snow mana or whatever. The front side of this is good. This is an 8 out of 10 on the front side. Cauldring the Rhyme Staff. 1 blue black. Tap. You may play target snow permanent card from your graveyard this turn. If you do... Oh. It enters the battlefield tap, that's it? Oh, we can hit lands. This seems like a 10 to me. But it's either a 9 or a 10 to me. You can't hit snow instants or lands. Or instants or sorceries, you're right. Let's make it a 9. You're right, it's not a 10, it's a 9. It's not as good as Chariot, that's for sure. The problem is there's a lot of removal that exiles, right? Between blue, white, and black. So I'm not sure how often your snow cards are even gonna hit the graveyard. So black has some self-mill involved, right? They have that 5 mana 4/4 chiller giant, right? That's a snow card. So. Oh yeah, Jorn had ferrets, that's right. There was the 1/1 ferrets. That like that chilled things that they'd hit, right? I remember that. I remember playing when I was a casual player like 20 years ago. I had that in one of my decks. It was a 1 cost 1/1 ferrets, right? That if they were blocked, they get like +02 and then like tap the creature or something. Jovin's ferrets. Whenever it attacks, it gets +02. At end of combat, top all creatures that blocked it, they don't untap. Yeah. Yep. Kolvori, God of Kinship. As long as you control 3 or more legendary creatures, whatever. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a legendary creature card from among them. What? No. It's a 2/4 no text. You might have 1 hit in your deck, right? As the Ringcart Crest enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Tap, add a green. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type or a legendary creature spell. It's not a snow legendary artifact, which makes me sad. I mean, this was a card they printed in the past and their card was unplayable, right? It was what is it? Pillar of something or scroll of something? Or it was a 2-cost artifact that tapped for mana of any color for that creature, right? And that card was just unplayable. And 4 mana 2/4 is not a card I would play. 4 mana 2/4 that if you have a target, yeah, Pillory Scroll, is that what it was? That card was just unplayable. I think only if you have at least, yeah, this feels like if you have a legend, you play this. If you don't, if you have legends to hit, play it. If you don't, then you don't play this card. So. Yeah, Pillar of Origins. Tap a mana of any color, spend this mana, only cast a creature spell of the chosen type. Yep. That card is way better than this half of the card, and that card sucked. So, it's a double pillar? No. Well, the Pillar of Origins could mana fix you. This doesn't even mana fix you. It costs green and it produces green. I mean, it can cast legends, but who cares? I think it's a card you don't play. I think over half the time you don't play this card. I guess I'll just call it. I'll call it a 3. Oh, Pillarfield Ox. I got it. Pillarfield Ox and Pillar of Origins. They stuck 2 pillars together. That's a good one. All right. Old Growth Troll. Trample 4/4. Whenever Old Growth Troll die. Okay. All right. It's a lot of text. Whenever it dies, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield. Okay. It's an aura. Okay, no, okay. Alright. It's a 4/4 trample for green. When it dies, It comes back as an aura enchantment with enchant forest you control. With enchanted forest says tap to add green. Okay, so it comes back as a wild growth. Okay. So it's a 4/4 trample that when it dies, it comes back as a wild growth. And then it also has 1 mana tap, sacrifice this land. Create a tapped 4/4 green troll warrior creature token with trample. Okay. So it's a 4/4 trample that when it dies, it comes back as a wild growth. And you can sack the enchanted land to make a tapped 4/4. Okay. This seems like a 6? 7? I don't know. The mana cost is really stiff. I think the odds of you casting this before turn 6 are going to be not high. I'll do some quick geometric math here. Let's imagine you have 10 green sources in your deck. You're not going to have it. But imagine that you do. And you want to play this on turn 3 on the draw. You're going to be able to do that 48.5% of the time. That's assuming you're on the draw and you have 10 forests in your deck. That's not going to happen, right? You're for less than half the time, you're going to cast this turn 3 on the draw. On the play, you're going to cast it 40% of the time, right? My baseline for a card is 80%, right? My baseline is 80%. So what is the 80% number for me on this card? Turn 6, right? So if you're on the, say you're on the play, you have 7 cards in your opener, you draw 5 cards, so you're 12 cards deep. That's 65%. So 2/3 of the time, 2/3 of the time in a deck with 10 forest, you're going to be able to cast it by turn 6. Those are not good odds. You have some fixing as well, but I'm already taking that into account. Because you're probably going to have like 8 forests in your deck, right? I'm counting 10 forest. So I'm counting like 8 forest and 2 fixing. So I'm already counting 10. And you're not going to be able to cast it before turn 6. Really, you're just not. More than half the time. Professor Crocodile, it's not true because fixing will, like, imagine you have this card. On turn 2, you have forest in this card, and you're a 2-color deck or 2.5 color deck. You're not going to find a forest, right? So it's just not true to say that mana fixing always finds it. It's just not. Mana fixing is not a strict source. It's like half a source. So I think 10 is a generous number to have of successes in the population. And it still doesn't seem that good to me. Like, I think it's 9 in mono green. Come on, dude. It's sealed we're talking about. This is either a 5 or a 6. I feel like if you don't play this card, you will not be disappointed. I don't think it's a big deal if you don't play it. You need 12 sources of green, which is asking a lot. And I think a lot of the time you're going to play this on turn 5, so it's whatever. To me, it's whatever. It's a 5-mana 4/4. That's hard to cast, to me. Because you're not going to play before you have 5 lands in play all the time. If you weren't in green, you would play this every time. I just said how that's not true. Like, if you're like a 9 mountain 7 forest deck, you wouldn't play this card. So, I just don't think it's true. Like, there's a 5 cost 5/5, 400 green, 5 cost 5/5 a common, which I'm not sure this is better than. So, I think, like, the baseline is 5 cost 5/5, and I'm not sure this beats that. So, you'll know when to play this card. I'm putting it as a 5 in my list, but you'll know when to play it. If you've got 9 forest and like 2 ways to search for lands, then play it. If you don't, whatever. You're not going to be sad about it. You're not missing out on anything. Realm Walker. It's a skill testing question for new players that's going to rot in a lot of hands. I agree with you. Professor Crocodile. So I'm putting it as a 5 because I think more than half the green decks, it should be in your sideboard. So I'm putting it as a 5. If you're a 16-land green deck, you're not playing this card. If green is your second color, you're not playing this card. If you're playing like 4-color green, you're not playing this card. Right? So I think more than half the time you're not playing this, so it's a 5. 200 green, 2/3 changeling. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You may look at the top card of your library any time. You may cast creatures of the chosen type from the top of your library. I like it. I like it. I like it. It's obviously good. It's like a 7 or an 8, right? I think this is gonna hit. Assuming that your deck has 8 creatures of the chosen type, you're gonna get 2 cards a game off it. So that's good. It's not as good as the 4-mana 3/3 draw card. And here's the problem with the card is that, like, you have to play the card on top immediately, right? Because imagine you play Realm Walker and you choose Elf, right? And on turn 5, you can play your 5-mana 5/5 in your hand, but there's like a 2-cost 2/2 Elf on top of your deck. Well, if you're probably not gonna not play your 5/5, right? So I don't know. This will hit you 2 cards a game. It may not be at the right times that you want, and it may mess you up a little bit. It will hit 2 cards a game. This is much worse than Vizier the Menagerie, right? Vizier the Menagerie was a 4-mana 3/4 that lets you tap your lands for any color for creatures, and you can play any creature up top of your deck. This card is significantly worse than that. You can't foretell off the top of your deck. You can only foretell from your hand. If that's what you were commenting on. Yeah, I mean, if you're green, you're gonna play this. If you have green and 8 matching creature types, you're always gonna play this. If you don't, like, I feel like if you have like only 5 creature types, I guess you're still gonna play it. So you're always gonna play this card if you're green. Toski, Bearer of Secrets. This spell can't be countered. Indestructible. Attacks each turn if able. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Okay, so this is Coastal Piracy, right? Or this is Bident. This is Bident. I played Bident about 80% of the time. 89% of the time. Well, it does blocks the turn you play it, I guess. But it is somewhat concerning the deck damage Toski does to you. Because that's mandatory. That's mandatory card draw. That is concerning. Lots of exile removal? No, there isn't. I mean, do you play this card? If you're like a 10 creature deck, I don't think you don't play this card, right? But how often are you going to be green and have it be a 10 creature deck? Not very often. Cards would be better if they were better. I agree, Mr. Meme Dream. If cards were better, they would be better. Yes. That's a bold statement. I'll call it a 7. I think you're always going to play it. I don't think you're going to splash for this. So there aren't many minus. Yeah, there's not very many ways. Indestructible when it's basically indestructible. There's not many ways to kill it. There's some like passivisms in blue and white, but passivism doesn't stop it. This card is probably much worse than I think it is. Because instead of playing Natoski, you can use a Boast ability instead, right? This is asking a lot of you. I think this is a 6. It's situational, but it's always a main deck card, I think. Battle Mammoth. 6/5 trample. Whenever a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, draw a card, sure. Foretell, sure. Whatever. That's good. You can foretell it if you want. If it was just 5 minutes 6/5, you would play it, right? The foretell is kind of tacked on. Whatever. Snore. Yeah, it's an 8 out of 10. It might be a 9 out of 10, actually. I think the foretell might make it a 9 out of 10. It looks at spells or abilities on any of your permanents. Doomblade doesn't answer this. You draw a card, right? Yeah. This is probably a 9 out of 10. This is not a 10 out of 10. It might be. Maybe it's a 10 out of 10. Is it 10 out of 10? You don't splash for this, though. It's pretty hard to kill. Yeah, like your opponent play has to blow 2 cards to kill it, and you draw a card off it. It's like a 9.5. It's better than most 9s, but it doesn't get Doombladed. I think 9.5 is a good way to put this. It's a bomb that can't, like, that if it gets Doombladed, you still draw a card, but it doesn't, like, win the game, right? but it's close. Is this better? Yeah, I think it's better than the Red Treasure Dragon. The Red Treasure Dragon is gonna get Doombladed, who cares? There's a red common that just like, it's a red common that deals 4 for like either red or 3. Yeah, this is probably the best not 10 card. I'll probably agree to that. I think I'll agree to that. And I think it's because of the foretell that I think actually makes it that big, right? But the fact that you just drop it turn 4, that's a lot. Yeah, the Chariot is better than this, but it's not by much. I agree. Asika, the God of the Tree. Vigilance, add 1 mana of any color. Other legendary creatures you control have vigilance, whatever. The front side is fine. The front side's like a solid 8. You'd always play this card. Like, irrespective of the back card, you would always play this card. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield. Okay, whatever. You can cast this. That's not hard to cast. Well, it's not hard to cast with this, but obviously, if you're only gonna open one of these, right? So, I think this is just an 8. It might be a 7. Maybe it's a 7. It's 7.5. I think you're right, but it's better than all the other 7s. I'll put a 7.5. If you can actually do this backside, it's an 8. And you can do the backside if you have the combo. If you have Sculptor of Winter and Glittering Frost, then the backside of this is totally doable. I think this is an 8 if you can conceivably cast the backside, otherwise it's a 7. So I guess 7.5 is a good way to do it then. Tavare Kel. Elves you control have tap at a black. Put a counter on up to 1 target elf. Untap it. It gains Death Touch until end of turn. Whatever. Create a 1/1. Alright. You get an emblem with whenever you cast an elf spell, it gains haste until end of turn, and you draw 2 cards. This is not very good, right? The card's fine, but you would always play it. But it's not like a big reason to play green. It just it dies to a flyer, like a 3/3 flyer in commons. This feels like a 6 or a 7 to me. It's low loyalty and it doesn't go up very much. This is pretty unimpressive. Yeah, I'm not sure I would always play this. I agree. If you don't have the elves, you wouldn't even play it. Like, your opponent plays a 3-mana 3/2, you play this, make an elf, they like kill your elf and attack this, right? Like, that's not impressive to me. I agree this is more of a 5.5. This is a pretty bad 4-mana walker. I don't think you always play this. Trample Haste 6/6. Okay. Alright. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, but twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. If an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent player, that players put half that many of each of those kinds of counters. Rounded down. Okay. Let's unwind this a little bit. The bottom part of this card is your opponent can't put counters on their creatures, right? Because 1 rounded down to 0. Half of 1. Okay. I didn't even know sagas were in the set. Okay, I don't know if it's Rex sagas. Every saga costs less than 6 and is completely done by the time this comes into play. To say there's Rex sagas would be an overstatement. Okay, if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of... Okay, so if you were to play a saga, if this is in play, you get the first and second? Isn't that my understanding? Or do you just get the second? You get both? Okay. So you get 1 and 2, and then next turn you get the third. Okay. So it accelerates your sagas and makes your opponent's sagas freeze until this dies. Okay. Trample Haste. What about loyalty? How does this work? So if I play Tavare Kill, does it come into play with 6 loyalty? It does come into play with 6 loyalty? Okay, so you can ult it immediately. And then the possibility puts 2 counters and then gets 2 loyalty. Okay. It's not as good as Charging Monstrosaur to me. Charging Monstrosaur was like a 10 out of 10, which was a 4 and a red Trample Haste 5/5. That was a 10 out of 10. You played it in every deck, regardless of your colors. This is not that card. This is worse than Charging Monstrosaur. So this is just a 9. This is just a 9. It might even be an 8, honestly. Because I think it's worse than Burning Rune Demon, isn't it? I think it's worse than Burning Rune Demon, and I think it's worse than Goldspan Dragon. So I actually think it's an 8. Well, Burning Rune, you can just go find 2 Terminates, or like a Death Toucher and a Terminate, and just block this guy down, right? So, well, Blaze, the demon draws a card, like tutors for like a removal or a creature, right? So, it's definitely worse than Eradicator Valkyrie. So I think it's solidly an 8. Yeah, the 4/3 flying lifelinker is way better than this card. This is pretty solidly an 8. It's much worse than Battle Mammoth. It's not. Battle Mammoth is way better than this card. So, it's pretty solidly an 8, in my opinion. No, Blaze, it might get your second or third best card, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Might get your third best card or fourth best card. Because you might have already drawn your best card, right? But yeah. I think on average, I think that Burning Rune Demon is going to find your third best card. But... And the thing is, I know it's weird to me to rate Vorinclex as an 8 out of 10. And for Grizzled Outrider, which is the 4 and a green 5/5 as an 8 out of 10. It may seem weird to you. But something to understand when it comes to limited especially is that 6 is a lot more than 5. It is not, the difference between 5 and 6 is not 1. Because you will often, like, you'll have 5 mana by turn 6, and you'll have 6 mana by like turn 7 or turn 8, right? So like instead of 1, it's more like 1.7 or 1.8 or almost 2, yeah. And that's a lot. Like in those 2 turns, your 5/5 came down, it blocked for a turn, and it attacked twice. Right? And the time it takes for you to like wind up to casting this, your 5/5 has already come into play and done some work for you. It takes like 2 or 3 turns for Vorinclex to even match up. It may never match up with the 5/5, right? Like if you're attacking a brick wall, they kill at the same speed if you're attacking a brick wall. Like, if I just, on turn 5, play a 5/5, attack, next turn attack, next turn attack, next turn attack, that's 4 turns dealing 20, right? If I just play this on turn 6 and attack 4 times, that's still, it's the same amount of time. It's actually less time for the 5/5, isn't it? So, depending. It's the same, they both kill on turn 9, but like, the 5/5 could potentially be faster. Depending. Because if this hasn't come out on turn 6, then the 5/5 is definitely faster. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, 6 drops there's a lot of onus on 6 drops to be defensive. Yeah, and the 5/5 blocks the turn it comes out, you're correct. There's a lot of onus on 6 drops to be defensive, or draw cards. Which this does not do. Like, Honey Mammoth was the 6 mana 6/6 that gains 3 life, or was it 3 life or 4 life, I don't remember. But, like, there's a lot... When you have your big creature in play, you want to be defensive a lot of the time, because you're probably going to be behind. Because green doesn't have a lot of, like, tempo-positive removal spells. You're often just, like, playing creatures, and then your opponent plays smaller creatures, and then plays, like, cost-effective removal spells on you. And so when you're green, you're often behind. And you really would like your 6 drop... You would like to have a big creature come down sooner, or have your high-cost cards be defensive. And this is kind of like... This feels like a red card, right? So... Anyways. Well, that's green. Battle Mammoth and... Green got a lot of... Got Battle Mammoth and the Chariot, which are, like, their 2 best cards. So, that's pretty impressive. This is the 10 out of 10 for green. Red looks pretty good. Or green looks pretty good. Let me see what the, let me see. 112. Not as good as red. Red is still better. But it's definitely better than black and white. Yeah, it's about the same as blue. That sounds right. Green looks about the same power level as blue. Green may be a little bit better. I may have overrated a few of the blue cards. Like, Behold the Multiverse is probably not a 9. So it looks like red and green, like, just looking at the commons, It looks like green and red are the two best colors in the set. It's green and then red and then blue and then probably black and then white. White is the worst. But it's hard to look at just averages because there's some ones. Like red has some ones in their commons. So red is even better than it looks. Because it has some ones, but the average is much higher. All right, let's look at start looking at gold or colorless now.